Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, believe it or not, we are back. It's the Thigh Gap podcast. Back after more than a year of absence. My name is Bogus Noog, and with me today is a special guest. His name is Syklik, and he's actually a friend of mine from school, so we go way back. And today, he's a subject matter expert in the domain of music and sound. So Brute is not going to be joining us today. This is something to be expected because unlike me, Brute right now actually has a life. So he has shit to do. But those of you who tune in just for his soft, velvet, dulcet voice, you can tune in every week to our Telugu podcast. I can assure you he'll be braying like a donkey without fail. So yeah, on we go to our English podcast. Let me welcome our special guest. First of all, Syklik, welcome to the show.
Glad to be here on the Thigh Gap podcast after so long.
Yeah, and thanks for doing this, by the way.
Anytime, man. These conversations you guys have on this is pretty great. It's very important, I think so.
That's a great plug for us, even though he hasn't heard a single episode. But I'm going to use that as an excuse to go into our socials. You can find us on Instagram at _ThighGap, on Twitter at ThighGap, and our email is mindthigap@gmail.com. You can also join us at our Discord, the link for which you can find in the episode description or in our link in bio. See you there. All right, on to the episode. So Syklik, we've wanted to do this episode on the information overload.
Right, yeah.
That we've been observing in these dark, cursed times of ours. And we just felt that being early millennials ourselves, maybe there is something we can share to the benefit of people who were born after the internet, right, and those who don't have any context of what it was like before, or any millennials themselves who, as usual, want their trappings of nostalgia. This episode might work for them as well. Shame on you.
But I think, yeah, it's a human perspective that can be discussed.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter whether you're born now or later, but I think it's a perspective that's very important, especially for coming from millennials, because we were the transition generation, especially in India.
Yeah, especially early millennials. We've had quite a lot of our formative years,
right,
before the internet existed or really kicked off full steam.
Right.
And we've also been able to see what's happened after the transition. So we've got one leg there and one leg here. And that's why we're fucked in the middle.
Yeah, they call the confused generation.
Yeah. And the one thing that disgusts me about millennials, dude, is
right,
such suckers for nostalgia. It's like...
No, but I think because of the simplicity of the times.
Yeah, no, it's understandable.
Yeah. Right, yeah.
But it does get too much at times.
Yeah.
A bit much. So, as we always do, we like to set context for the episode, just so you know where this is going to go. Initially, we're going to talk about what it was like for us before the internet age.
Right.
What was life like and what were the pros and cons of that? How did it impact us? How did the transition impact people like us? And then we get deep into the current state of things, which is what is this information overload age doing to our minds?
Yeah.
And to those delicate minds of sensitive little Zoomers and Gen Alphas like you, whoever may be listening.
Right.
So hopefully this information will be useful.
Yeah,
all
definitely.
Right. So we'll jump right into it now that the context is set. I'll start with a question. If we're calling this the information overload age,
yeah,
then what was it like before any of this happened? What was our general experience?
Yeah, as Indians, definitely, right?
Yeah.
Much simpler. I would say I still remember having a television at home was a big deal.
Yeah.
Especially in the 80s. Like later in the 90s is when we had telephones at home. Mm-hmm. It was like your neighbors would come so that they could receive their calls. And why I think that is important to understand is that just after 2000, it changed drastically quite a bit.
And the telephones were tethered.
Yeah, tethered to a wall. You had to go there.
You couldn't just walk around with them. Yeah.
And making calls was not free. Like you,
it cost a lot.
If you had relatives or friends abroad, it was a thing that you had to think about. To even call, it's like you better love that person a lot.
Oh yeah, every second you see the price.
You see the price ticking. And you tell them too, especially as Indians, you're going to mention, man, this has cost me like $2 or $3 like for every second.
Yeah.
So just communication itself. I think that is the key part, is that communication changed a lot in many ways. Communication as well as information, how important and how relevant it is in the evolution of us as humans.
Yeah.
So we understood how tough it was before.
Yeah.
Even having a television, I remember my parents had a television which was like, we had a door that opened and was like black and white. You know, that was like, I remember that being a TV, and it was so special to watch content. But the important part also, I mean, there is negative, of course, but the one good thing I still remember is whatever came little bit on those televisions, the quality of the content had to be that fantastic.
Yeah.
In order for us to even have like few minutes, whether it be music program like Chitrahar, I remember.
Yeah.
Some really great, talented artists only were there. So music was like top of the line.
Yeah.
Including television programs. I remember comedy shows as well as even today the Mahabharata and the Ramayana from that time still stands.
Yes.
You know, still stands in the 21st century, 2024's
relevant.
And with the graphics and whatnot.
Yeah.
It still holds its place.
Yeah. And you know, the remakes that they've made of Ramayana and Mahabharata.
Yeah.
I can literally see the Gillette on their face. You know, I can see a 5 a.m. shadow or whatever.
Right.
And I can see stubble, I can see facial shaping.
Right.
Which really pulls me out. You know, I can. But when you watch Ramanand Sagar's work or the Mahabharata serial of that time, the quality, the sheer quality of everything, the dialogues.
The actors, the dialogues, like what you thought was, like you didn't even really pay attention to how great the person looked or something.
Yeah.
They pulled you into the story.
Right.
I mean, now with viewership ratings and numbers that they count, if they did have that in India that time, I think the entire India shut down during that time.
Yeah.
Like I remember they used to not run offices they used to, like nothing would run during the Ramayana and Mahabharat's time because all families would be sitting in front of it.
Yeah.
Because the quality of that content and acting, directing, script, dialogues, but at that excellent level.
So if you pro and con this.
Yeah.
You could say the advantage was there was a concentration of talent.
Yeah.
Because there were not many avenues.
Right.
And the standard was very high.
You had to be.
You had to reach the standard.
Yeah.
The con is, of course, today, you know, there's a democratization of opportunity.
Which is fantastic too.
Which is great also. But the inevitable side effect of that is the quality or the standards.
Mediocrity.
Yeah. The baseline of standard now is mediocre.
Mediocre is like celebrated. Yeah.
Pretty much. So my experience, and I really want the Gen Zs to try and wrap their heads around this.
Right.
Which is our experience of information.
Right.
The way we interfaced with information, the way we engaged with information.
Yeah.
Was that it was very, very compartmentalized.
Sure. Yeah.
And it was in silos.
Right.
What I mean by that is information through books or any print media.
Yeah.
You would have to seek it out yourself.
Definitely. Yeah.
Nothing was ever thrust on you unless it was your academic, obligation or whatever.
Yeah. Like anything other than education, you had to go and find them.
You had to find.
Like if you wanted to find novels, it would be like either through your friends or sister or somebody who would read it and then they would recommend it. So there was like a much better filtration system of like the kind of content that you did receive. And again, because this was before the global India.
Yeah.
The amount of stuff that would come in would be either through your like relatives or some friends or libraries.
Right.
Libraries were like such a great thing where you would meet people and then those people would be curators of great books.
Yes.
Because they themselves would be avid readers.
Yeah.
So there was a kind of filtration of high quality content in a way for the Gen Z generation to understand perhaps.
Yeah.
In terms of content.
The other thing is that in a day of 24 hours, as a school going kid,
right,
I would interface with information, which I'm excluding, the school stuff.
Yeah.
Because that's education, it's indoctrination, all that stuff.
Yeah.
But information only maybe for an hour.
Right.
Outside the school.
Yeah.
Because TV was a communal experience.
Yeah.
Unlike now where we all get lost in our own screens.
Yeah.
The entire family used to gather around the TV for Chitrahar or whatever.
Whatever, yeah.
So that used to take up about 15-20 minutes, give or take.
Right.
And then, as usual, the patriarch of the house has to watch the news.
Yeah.
So that means the entire family now has to sit and watch the news. So you're watching the news, which also lasts only about 25 minutes to 30 minutes.
Right.
And you get the entire global update.
Right.
And
Every news. Yeah.
once it ends, you're done with it.
Yeah. And there was no yelling.
Yeah. There used to be no yelling.
Yeah.
It was very concise.
Yeah. Very professional.
Very trite and very professional.
Yeah.
And very deadpan also.
Right.
Like
yeah.
almost lifeless.
Sure. Yeah.
Which is modeled after the British, right?
Right. Yeah. Correct.
But the point is, from the time we watched that news program, willingly or unwillingly, until the next 24 hours,
Yeah.
we never bothered with news again.
Correct. We had fun. We were kids. And
we were kids.
would play with other friends. Yeah.
There was a lot of time for idling around. There was a lot of time for playing with our friends.
Imagination.
There was a lot of time for curiosity.
Yeah.
But the main thing is your head was not fucked
Yeah.
with stuff.
And I just want to say that it was the same 24 hours that we have today
Yeah,
that we had even then.
exactly.
It's just that what was missing and what was available, how it impacted us
Yeah,
as a generation, that even today, like how we might be confused, or at the same time, how we have the ability to perhaps observe a little more
yes.
in today's age and perhaps be less fucked now that we are in our 30s and 40s compared to when we were in our 20s, when the real transition was happening.
Yeah,
So I think that part of it helped because we were idle a lot,
Yeah.
or we let our imaginations fly. The time is the same.
I'd want to say that in a different way.
Sure, yeah.
Rather than idle, compared to today's time especially,
Yeah.
back then that time feels like my head was not a garbage dump.
Yeah.
Against my will,
Yeah.
they were not shucking garbage 24/7 into it.
For sure.
So it was more free.
And your opinions were just whatever little bit around you, and it was very simple.
That's
There was
it.
not too much.
Yeah, there was none of this all eyes on Rafa bullshit.
Right.
Something happens on other side of the world, corner of the world,
Yeah.
and you're not sitting here and crying about it,
Yeah.
looking for a safe space. It was just all you knew was your localized context.
News and information.
What's going on with your friends, what's going on with your family. So in that sense, it was a more simpler
Yeah.
existence. And there was more possibility because your neural paths, again,
Yes.
were not clogged
Yeah.
with bullshit.
That's, I think, very important for people to understand, because the amount of neurons and everything is the
Holy
same.
shit, man. Yeah.
Whether you are like current generation or not,
Yeah.
the human body hasn't really like changed too much. But
Yeah.
how that impacts your development and your growth, which also you can see in today's studies about these generations, how it's an obvious revelation. Like it's way more obvious as to why people feel the way they are today.
Right.
Because of this
Yeah.
difference, I think. There was more silence.
There was more silence. There was more calm.
Yeah.
There was allowance for pause.
Yeah.
You could actually pause and smell the flowers, like they say.
Right.
And now it just doesn't seem possible.
Now there are not even many flowers.
Now, honestly, dude, now it seems like you have to go to war
Yeah.
to reclaim,
Some sort of nature connection.
some sort of silence,
Yeah,
some
silence.
sort of calmness. It's like you have to actually go on a war path for that. It's not even like, I'm just going to decide I want some silence and I'm going to get it.
No way.
You're not going to get it.
No, it's not there.
So I think we've driven the point home about, what the difference was
Yeah.
back then.
But the cons you want to talk about.
Oh, yeah. The cons is, not much opportunity back then.
Yeah.
And we had no avenues.
Right.
Everyone knew only 2 or 3 paths in life
Yeah.
that they could possibly take. So in that way, it was very restrictive.
Yeah. I am happy to live in this century.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Like, though we're talking about the greatness, the important part of the past is the silence.
Yeah.
And the time we got to just be kids and just develop our own creativity and imagination, I think, which is very important regardless of what world you live in, especially even taking AI world or whatever.
Yeah.
That your imagination and creativity is what's going to make you special.
Yeah.
So we had that time, but at the same time, no regrets. Fantastic. I'm glad that we
Absolutely,
are
dude.
in this generation,
Yeah.
regardless of the nonsense, because contrary to popular belief, even though the topic is information overload, overload can happen only if you consciously allow for it to happen.
Exactly.
That you still have agency.
It's personal responsibility at the
Yes.
end of the day.
And it is important that you recognize it regardless, because if you have an identity that's completely formed online and that you live on your phone or internet, you might fall into the illusion of belief that without that you cannot exist.
Yeah. And hand to heart, you Gen Z kid fucks, you know, and I say that with love and humor. But hand to heart, you know, if I had a choice, I would rather the transition happened at least 7 or 8 years earlier.
Yeah.
Because my formative years were fucked.
Right.
The transition happened a little late.
Yeah. In our 20s, teens, 18 to 25, I think that was when it started.
Yeah. So now I want to talk about the experience that we especially have.
Yeah.
Even in millennials, you know, I think, you can say millennials at large. Yeah. Because in India, it took longer, a little bit longer for...
Yeah, they always say what happened in the abroad comes to India about like 15 years late.
15 to 20 years. Yeah, easy.
Yeah, I've seen that in music, for sure.
Yeah. So I'd like to go into what has been our experience specifically, given the fact that we've had one leg in the past and one leg now in this world today.
Yeah.
How exactly has that fucked us up?
Sure.
And this is not for other millennials to touch themselves while listening to. You know, this is it's more for the Gen Zs to be aware because they may not know this.
Yeah. I mean, one thing I needed to address, these terms are given by the media, right? And every generation thinks of the right before that generation as stupid or... And this generation, of course, unfortunately, I've seen a lot of this ageism thing, which is compared to the other generations I have not come across. Because I've worked with a few musicians as well. Okay. So this age term seems to be like, oh man, you're too old. Like when you see 30, like that seems to be a thing now. But I actually want to inform that every generation that you know in history, and we are talking about like all the way to even people that we think are like ancient.
Let's talk all the way back to Sumeria.
Yeah.
Why not?
I'm sure even then.
Yeah.
Because it's the same human thing.
Exactly.
It is about trying to stand out. Every generation wants to see that we are different. There is some difference. And again, I think a lot changed after the Industrial Revolution, perhaps. I don't know, because the world really was like kind of the same until
you're
then.
Right. Yeah.
But I think that would have started this like kind of trigger because every generation was having something new or the other.
Yeah.
Really, it was an exponential rise. Right? So I'm not sure much about like the early history, but definitely we can see it from at least when we have television, like from the 30s and 40s, you can see every generation bitches about previous one.
Oh, yeah.
And everybody, the entire thing is that every human generation just wants to feel special. But if you're a human that comes out of all this bullshit, what you learn is that you learn what it means to be a human.
Exactly.
By just observing these things from far apart. And the thing is, you realize a lot of it is cyclical.
Yeah. But don't you think the shitting, you know, the intergenerational shitting, if I may, don't you think that's a two-way street? You know, because the older generation also looks down on the
younger ones. Always,
yeah.
But at the same, I think that is because evolution is long.
Right.
So it's very tough for humans to really like fathom evolution in your scale of like even in your imagination because we just live such short lives.
Yeah.
Right. But I think it is a important fun part if you can take it as a fun part. Each one, humans do that. Like, and I think that kind of balances things out. Like you will bitch. But like, for example, these, I've seen a lot of YouTube videos where Gen Z people are like, oh man, you're 30 or like you're too old. I just want to laugh and say, by the way, the people who are going to call you uncle and auntie are already just born.
Yeah.
Because you're already 20 years older than them.
Yeah, you are.
So
an
the
uncle
kids
already.
are, so you're already like, you're just going to get there in like about 10, 15 years. So it's better if you take out the bullshit and study it as history.
Yeah.
Study human history because then you can achieve, like if you're purposeless or if you feel lost, especially in today's time where things are thrown upon you as to what you need to be.
Yeah.
If you can step out of all this bullshit, you will see that there is a very common thread. That is the human part.
Yeah.
The generation is affected by the technology of its time and what changes happen.
Yeah.
But if you do step out of that and start observing, that is like going to take you way farther in what you want to do in life. But that I just wanted to say, not to be serious.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
But just that Gen Z people seem to, because of the identity to online and being so bombarded by who you are by outside people telling you
Right.
compared to us, because we had the time away from the internet.
Yeah.
So that is just something I wanted to inform, because they are the first.
That's a great point. And, that's how you would say it. And I completely agree. How I would like to say it is, you kid fucks. With the way the world is going right now,
Yeah.
you would be lucky if you get to my age.
Yeah.
All right?
I mean, and sane. Hopefully have some.
And sane.
Yeah.
Yes. You'd be lucky if you were still alive. I mean, look at what's going on around you.
Yeah. I mean, if you're not in those zones.
Yeah. So next time you want to look at an older guy and laugh at him,
Yeah.
Just
You're going to
remember.
get there.
just remember, you'll get there if you're lucky.
Yeah, that's true.
Consider yourself lucky if another kid comes to you and calls you uncle,
Yeah.
bitch. But I say that with love. Again.
The Gen Z hate. Yeah. The millennial Gen Z thing. It's right there. In another 20 years, we won't be talking about this shit. We'll be talking about, imagine the people who are born in the AI generation, and we have no idea.
Yeah, in another 20 years, we'll be talking about pensions and hip replacement surgeries.
If it is even there.
Yeah. But yeah, back to the point, actually, the topic, which was what has been our experience,
Right.
Getting fucked in the middle like this. One leg here, one leg there, pissing in the present now, pissing on our present.
Yeah.
And to start off, for me, I don't know about you, Syk, but for me, when the internet was kicking off, we were still in school,
Yeah.
late school, like we were getting off 10th or whatever.
Yeah.
And it was so exciting. And
Definitely.
there was a wave of hope and optimism. What there are websites
Yeah.
where I can just go access information whenever I want.
Yeah.
And it's, if not free, it is cheap.
Yeah.
The concept of email blew our mind,
Definitely.
because we were in a boarding school.
Yeah.
And we used to write letters every fortnight or something like that.
Yeah. And if you didn't have too much money, postcards.
Postcards.
Where everybody, it's like open email. Everybody can check what
Anyone
you
can
write.
read what you write.
Right.
Exactly. And they used to read also, our faculty.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
They used to read all of them.
Yeah. Fuckers.
So we used to write letters every fortnight or every week to our families.
Yeah.
Those took about maybe a week or more, depending on where these kids are from.
Yeah.
Because some of them, the boarding school is in South India. We had students from Jammu also,
Yeah.
for example.
Definitely. Yeah.
Imagine how long that takes to go.
Yeah. Right.
And then the parents read that and they write back.
Yeah.
And again, that takes a hell of a lot of time
Yeah.
to reach the kids. And that used to be our communication.
Definitely.
Compare that to your WhatsApp now.
And what most of the time, because you constantly write, it's like what you just, like your mom calling and just saying, have you eaten food?
Yeah.
It would be just generally like as basic as that. But sometimes because it's like you have very concise, they would update like your family stuff.
Mm-hmm.
That's what you got to know important things because you had to be concise.
Yeah.
And it took time.
Yeah.
So what each one, like what your parents cared about. But as students, I think we would just write like, oh, this is what today we went and did this. It was like such basic communication that today on WhatsApp just takes like a microsecond.
Which, to be fair, to our eyes,
Yeah.
it seemed ordinary.
Yeah,
What we were writing. Oh, today I went, I played cricket, I played this, I sang here, I played this instrument.
Right.
But to our parents, I think it was pretty special.
Yeah.
Because that's exactly what they wanted to know. They wanted to know what's going on with you.
That's true.
And you made a great point just now that we got to know each other differently or in a better way.
Right.
Because the kind of expression that comes through in written communication,
Yeah.
letters,
Definitely.
you don't really talk to people that way.
We didn't talk to our parents. I mean, our parents were like the ancient generation. They were the first generation post-independence, imagine actually.
Yeah.
Their parenting was even more crazy. If we're talking about parenting today,
Yeah.
like that's one of the things I think also millennials are kind of fucked because we got the first generation post-independence.
Yeah.
So those parents, like they would not communicate. Like it's not an
Exactly.
easy communication thing. I'm sure different families, of course, would be very different.
Yeah. And there's no finger pointing. There's no blaming them
Yeah.
for it. They were fucked themselves.
Oh, now we understand them like way better.
Way better. Yeah.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of hope and optimism. And we thought this new age was, just on its way.
Oh, yeah.
And puppies and butterflies and all that
Yeah.
stuff.
It was great. Yeah.
But then 2 years pass.
Yeah.
5 years pass. Nothing.
It's kind of stayed the same.
It just stayed that way.
That's it. All just email, few more websites, a Y2K problem, browsers. Like that is all the internet was.
And it was so slow.
Yeah.
And it was so expensive.
Oh, man. Yeah.
You couldn't really do anything productive back then online except for, email. maybe small communiques.
That's it. Yeah.
That's what you could get done.
There were chat
Chats.
messengers.
Yeah, chat messengers.
Right. Yeah.
So it was basic stuff, but
Yeah.
it really took a lot longer than we anticipated.
Definitely.
And that also did a number on us. So once you get someone's hopes up and then you shit on them,
Oh yeah.
that's what tends to happen.
Definitely. I mean, it wasn't an exponential rise. It was kind of linear. It took time for general Indians to really be on the internet,
Exactly.
I would say. Yeah.
Yeah. In the West, it was really exponential,
Way fast.
way faster. But in India, it took its own sweet time.
Yeah.
Many
and that
reasons.
definitely screwed us too.
It screwed us up. Yeah.
Because it gave hope and then did like KLPD on it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And so transitionally, the experience has been that you thought you were at the right time
Yeah.
in the right place.
Definitely.
But then you later realize, oh, it's actually the generation after me that's in the right place at the right time.
Yeah. Maybe the ones who were born in the late 90s.
Late
maybe?
90s, yeah.
Yeah.
From there onwards.
Yeah.
So the experience has been, I mean, it's been extremes, as in from a period of calmness, also on the other hand, not a lot to look forward to also.
Yeah.
But then all of a sudden, this bombardment of, oh, the world is moving so fast.
Yeah.
Oh, there are so many opportunities. What are you doing?
Yeah.
What are you doing with your life? Why aren't you doing this? Why aren't you doing that?
Yeah.
All of these choices that just sprung up from nowhere.
Yeah.
And it kind of induced analysis paralysis of sorts. It really fucked with us in the sense that our stress levels went for a toss.
I mean, sleeping habits.
Sleeping habits went for a toss.
Yeah.
Anxiety increased a lot more.
Yeah.
It kind of felt like you were just standing on a treadmill,
Yeah.
which is stationary. It's off.
Yeah.
And you're just chilling, you're chatting with your friend
Yeah.
who's also on a treadmill. All of a sudden, it goes to the highest speed possible.
Suddenly. Yeah.
Suddenly.
Yeah.
And now you're just catching your breath.
Yeah.
You're playing catch up and you don't know what's happening.
Yeah.
That's been the experience of, people like us.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Especially the 80s ones, the kids who were born in the 80s, like, man, I mean, we can just look photos up. That's the best thing I can say. Just look photos of India. Like, that is the India I still remember. So simple.
Yeah. And because we're aware of, what the world was like before.
Yeah.
And we came through the transition. When social media started picking up, we kind of had this awareness, unspoken awareness that these two worlds are separate.
It was just an extension, not really who you are.
Exactly.
But it was like, okay, this is the thing that I create in order to communicate with people.
Yeah. This is a separate interface. It's not really my entire identity.
Oh, definitely.
And neither does it have the power to influence, my entire identity.
For sure.
And what happens to it. Yeah. So because of that awareness, we kind of knew that you don't put all of your shit out there.
Yeah.
There's things that you can talk about and then there's things that you don't talk about.
Yeah.
Of course, eventually, as the years passed, that sort of eroded.
Yeah.
And people started putting all of their shit online.
Man, yeah.
But in the initial stages, there was not much of toxicity.
Yeah.
It was very MySpace. Hey, let's hang out.
Yeah. I think that is the best part that for me the internet gave. Or like before that, only you had your own set of friends. So within that, you would be your differences.
Yeah.
But when we started getting onto social media, we started seeing how we are actually a lot similar.
Yeah.
And everybody, I think, in that group knew that this was not their main identity.
Exactly. That was the main thing.
I think that played a huge role.
Huge role in that. And because it hadn't reached that saturation yet, that cynicism was not there.
Yeah.
The cynicism that you come across everywhere online now.
Now, yeah.
Yeah, it's just drenched in it. It's soaking in that.
I do feel bad for the generation where online identity is part of your identity.
That's tragic.
I guess they will adapt, but clearly they haven't yet. But again, they are also the first. It's like just our parents.
Exactly.
Who were born after independence.
Yeah.
I feel like the current generations are the ones who were born after the.
Yes.
So the first is always fucked.
Always fucked, yeah.
And this is where we figure shit out as to what we need to cleanse. How do you curtail things?
Course correction is the word they use, right? Millennials like us, we have some course correction to do ourselves.
Definitely.
Constantly, but Gen Zs also quite a lot.
Yeah, I think because of the fact that they're born with an online identity, without that, there is no identity. The online identity is a separate thing.
Yeah.
And not like you are somebody else.
Right.
It's just that it is a place where you just put what you need as you need it.
It's just a facet of your personality. It's
yeah.
like the way I communicate with my friends is different from how I communicate with my family relatives.
Definitely, yeah.
Or my parents or my siblings.
Yeah.
So it's just like that, another facet of your personality, but it's not the entire.
And where you're not influenced by your likes, your followers.
Exactly. Yeah.
Sure, there is a clear understanding that, okay, those things are helpful for marketing.
Yeah.
It's not who I am. Like, oh, I have 5 million likes. Wow, I am the king. Or like, I'm a queen. You better treat me this way.
Right. You derive your value from
that.
Yeah.
That I think is an important lesson regardless of the generation.
Yeah,
because that's the human part.
Exactly. Because in the older generations also, people used to be like, oh, I'm the regional manager.
Yeah.
I'm the king.
Yeah.
No, bitch.
No, you're not.
Yeah, you're not. So it's the same thing.
You just have a bunch of yes people around you.
Yeah.
When you walk out of that goddamn bank branch, then reality will slap you in the face, maybe literally.
That's it. That slap is right around the corner.
Yeah.
So, all right, we've talked about the transition and how that transition has been for us.
Yeah.
Hopefully that provides some important context. It's not all doom and gloom. You know, it's not all just a black pill. It's not all doom and gloom.
Oh man, it's great times.
What we're doing is we're just shining a light on the problem in a proper way. And then we can move on to, okay, how do we tackle it? Yeah. What kind of game can be played?
Yeah, how do you play the game?
How do you play the game with these new variables?
Yeah.
And in that transition, like I said, you're feeling rushed. And now you cannot take proper decisions because you're always either in a state of rush or heightened anxiety. And your mind is just constantly full of something all of the time.
Oh, there's no silence.
There is no silence, not a moment's rest. And this is where I think we can merge into the next part of this episode.
Yeah.
Because this state of, not a moment's rest and not a moment of silence is something that we have in common with these Gen Z guys.
Yeah.
And in my opinion, they really need to keep this in mind that this is not some benign thing that's happening out of, happenstance or, someone slipped and, it just happened. No, it's not an innocent thing that's happening to you with this information overload.
Yes.
It is a very deliberate thing. It is an engineered thing.
Yes.
And they have very specific motives behind stuffing your head with bullshit.
Because you will stay mediocre and
Exactly.
you will stay silent because if you cannot handle yourself, what are you going to do out in the world?
Yeah.
Keep you anxious, keep you depressed, make you feel like you have no purpose.
Yeah.
Like what is that?
Purpose is far away from your line of sight.
Oh yeah, nothing.
Because now your head is stuffed with all sorts of bullshit.
They are telling you who you are and who you should be.
Yeah.
And what does it mean to be you?
Yeah.
There is no space.
Exactly. And, I just want to use an example so that even if there is anyone who did not understand the importance of that space
space and
that
silence.
you were talking about.
Yeah.
Imagine you guys are stuck some street, either in Mumbai or Bengaluru.
Yeah.
Okay, now those traffic jams are no joke.
Oh my God.
You're stuck there for hours. So if it's bumper to bumper and there's no room, even if you're on a two-wheeler, to even move even a little bit.
Yeah. How frustrated.
How much can you really do? No matter what potential you have, no matter what possibilities you have as an individual, how much can you really do in that situation?
Yeah. That's a great example. Yeah.
You can't do shit.
You can't do shit. Yeah. They have to allow you.
Exactly. It's only when the traffic eases up a little bit that you have options now. I can go straight, I can go fast, I can go slow.
Yeah.
I can swerve between these vehicles. You have all these variables that are available to you.
Yeah.
Think of these variables as possibilities to explore your potential.
Oh, yeah.
And you need the space. You need some room to be able to move and figure out your way around things. But now if your head is completely stuffed
with necessary and unnecessary
all
information.
kinds of bullshit.
Just information,
The purpose is that they want your heads to be stuffed.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
I don't have to use violence to get you to do what I want.
Oh, definitely.
If I have you by the psychological balls, all I need to do is tweak a few things here and there so that the right kind of messaging reaches your ears.
Yeah.
And now you're my zombie, you're my puppet.
That's it.
You're going to do whatever I want you to do.
It's just efficiency in human thinking, if you really see.
Efficiency in human control.
Control, really.
It's manipulation.
Yeah.
And the biggest side effect, I feel, of constantly having your head stuffed with information, relevant information, irrelevant information.
Yeah.
Absolutely information that you did not want is also finding its way into your head.
Yeah.
The biggest side effect of that is it zombifies you as an individual.
It's not even just an imagination talk here, but literally rewires your brains.
Yeah.
And hence, when your brain wires are really clogged, how are you going to come out of like depression? And when you are experiencing these kind of information overload without any space,
Yeah.
and this is unconsciously it is happening. Like you believe that you do not have the choice, right? You're made to believe that the illusion.
Yeah.
The illusion of no choice, it literally is wiring your brain for you to become a mediocre human being. When actually I think every human being is got the divine potential. What that means divine is not necessarily from a religious point, but the fact that you are unlimited.
Yes.
That you can create anything.
Yeah.
But how do you maximize its potential?
Yeah.
That is not given a space if you do not understand that you have choice.
Yeah. And you can really see this even in music, the loss of space.
Silence, it's so important.
The loss of silences in spaces. Because even to this day, my favorite music is from the 60s and 70s or around that age.
Yeah, yeah.
Because they had lots of silence, there are lots of spaces. They let their musical arrangements breathe.
Yes.
But now, there's not a moment.
It's just loud. We call it the loudness wars. And that's what, if your mind is like so filled with information,
exactly,
then you're going to, whatever you put out there is also going to be filled.
It's going to be a representation of that. Let's take a look at what are the side effects or what are the consequences of having your neural pathways stuffed all the time. Yeah. Like you're a taxidermy animal or like you're a stuffed pig or whatever it is, but it is stuffed all the time.
Yeah.
And you guys could probably observe this in your own life, try to compare and cross-check. Because really, when that happens, you are driven to a point as an individual where you become allergic.
Yeah.
And I use this word very deliberately. You become allergic to silence. You become allergic to a state of calm.
Yeah.
And the worst of all things, you become allergic to solitude.
Yeah.
You will not be able to handle a moment where you're just by yourself, left with your own thoughts. That's going to be the worst experience of your life.
Oh, that's like torture.
The next thing really for the information overload topic.
Yeah.
There is a war for your attention.
Yeah.
It is a constant war, especially with this 24/7 information cycle. It is constant and it is a war. It's not a word that is being used loosely.
Yeah.
And it is for your attention. And the most important thing is to first of all be aware of it, please.
Yeah.
Just be aware of it. That's the starting step at least.
I mean, I would say like the phone notifications, you see?
Yeah.
Like if you see a notification on your phone today, it's almost become like a psychological thing.
Yeah.
That if you see it, there's no time. Like there's nothing, this concept of, I can get to it.
Right.
At a later time of my choosing.
Right.
Is almost erased.
I think they call that Pavlovian trigger.
Okay.
Which is even apart from the phone notifications, we are now at a time where I've noticed this in people and it's kind of amusing, but it's also sad.
Right.
If someone's just chilling at their home, and the doorbell rings.
Right.
The anxiety with which...
Oh, you go to the door.
Exactly. They jump up.
Yeah.
Literally jump up and make a dash for the door to open it. It's almost like the person who's standing on the other side should not ring the doorbell more than once.
Right.
There's that unspoken gamification happening that these people behave in such a way that if the other person were to ring the doorbell more than once, then it's a sign of their failure in some way.
Oh.
That they didn't open the door soon enough.
Oh.
And it's the same thing with...
Right. What are you doing? Where are you? Yeah.
And it's the same thing with, a ringing phone.
Right.
There's that anxiety.
Oh, yeah.
But nowadays, with the new generation and with the youth now, the anxiety goes both ways. They're anxious to even answer the phone now, where they're thinking, should I answer? Shouldn't I answer? I don't want to answer.
Yeah.
But just before that, the anxiety was, I need to answer it quickly. It should not ring 3 times. It should not ring 6 times.
Oh.
Blasphemy. They behave in this way.
Right.
I've literally seen people behave in this way where their bodies just shake up.
Your hormone, there you go. It's controlling your entire body hormones. Yeah.
And I never understood. It's like, what's the rush?
Yeah.
What is your rush? Yes, someone rang the doorbell. All right. You're sitting in some other corner of your house.
Yeah. It's going to take you some time.
Reasonably,
Yeah.
it's going to take you some time to walk up and open the door.
Yeah.
And the person on the other end, outside the door, should also have reasonable expectations
Yeah.
that, okay, I'll wait 1 or 2 times, I can ring the doorbell.
Yeah.
More than that, I'm going to start thinking, are they home or not?
Yeah.
That's fine.
Yeah.
Why do you need to rush? When you get a phone notification, why are you feeling compelled to immediately check it? Where is this compulsion coming from? Where is this rush coming from?
It's that instant, like we were saying, the long-term thing is gone anymore.
And
There's no long-term.
Exactly. And if you dig down a little deep into that,
Right.
it is nothing but conditioning.
Yeah.
You're being conditioned to be like a dog.
Correct.
A Pavlovian trigger comes from that actually,
Right.
where there's a dog and his master's voice and there's a whole thing. I don't want to go into that.
Right.
But basically, you're being conditioned to be this dopamine addicted
Attention whore.
attention whore.
Yeah.
You know that movie Up, right? Pixar's
Yeah.
Up, where there's a dog in that called Doug.
Right.
And anytime the dog's talking and suddenly he goes, squirrel, he could be in a long conversation.
Yeah.
But all of a sudden he'll just go, squirrel.
Right.
And he'll turn his head and he'll start looking for the squirrel.
Right.
That's what we are today.
Right. Yeah. Actually, for me, because I've come from the mountains and now I'm in the city for like the last 4 months.
Yeah.
There's a huge, it's a great thing because I didn't pay attention to it till you said. Because in the mountains, there's nothing like 10 minutes. And now you have these apps and I've been ordering things and the Zepto is like 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And I have also noticed on their side too, where it's like they will ring the bell. If you're not there, he's just going to leave it there and quickly run. Even his job has become that way.
Yeah.
That don't spend too much time. Do not waste a second. And also my conditioning too, very unconsciously, to expect things to come within this much time.
Yeah.
And also the ringing of the bell.
Yeah.
The anxiety that developed just from 4 months of living in a city.
Yeah.
Where it's jam-packed in
Yeah.
many ways, like traffic-wise, information-wise, your access to things-wise.
Yeah.
There is a whole conditioning that is definitely going on. It's true.
And it is nothing but hypnosis.
It is. And it makes you, I think, people more terrible now.
Yeah.
Like they react crazy, like their anger is very fast.
Oh, yeah.
As a consequence, impatience is... Patience is one thing I learned in my life to be the best. I think a human being, who understands and really gets into the state of patience
Right.
and really knows how to keep that and like value it and control it, really achieves actually a lot. Because that is what is being untaught to you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Patience, space,
Yeah.
because all this makes you question.
Silence.
Silence.
Yeah.
It makes you think. It makes you be human.
Yeah.
Now you're being like trained to be like an animal, actually. You're right, like the dog.
Yeah. And that's a great point because this is what happens when your head is constantly full of shit all the time. What happens is your quality control goes down.
Oh man, mediocrity. There you go.
That's the mediocrity
That's
thing.
true. Yeah.
And what I mean by quality control is, let's think of a warehouse. Generally, a warehouse throughout the day, it has trucks coming in,
Yeah.
unloading. And once the inventory is unloaded, then the people inside the warehouse do the sorting.
Right.
Like this piece of inventory needs to go here, this particular corner. So there's the organization that happens. But what happens if this warehouse starts receiving 10 times, 50 times the amount of inventory than they expected?
Right.
So they have limited space.
Yeah.
Now there's 50 trucks more than they expected,
Yeah.
constantly unloading at all of the loading docks.
Yeah. But the employees are also the same number.
The same number of employees.
They're going to be stressed, unorganized.
Unorganized. And what happens is the quality control. If you had expected number of trucks coming in, then you would know how much time you would have to inspect each and everything.
Absolutely.
To check if the condition of the inventory is good or not. But once you have all these 50 trucks coming in that you did not expect,
Interesting.
how much time do you have to quality control what's going on? And this is exactly what you said.
Yeah.
Nowadays, people are way more prone
Yeah.
to emotional outbursts,
Yeah.
to anger,
Yeah.
Because there's no silence, there's no gap,
Literally, in your warehouse example, there is no space.
there is no space for you to
Yeah.
process anything.
Yeah.
Or you feel this constant compulsion to rush with everything.
That's
so
true.
the quality of your ideas, the quality of your decisions, the quality of your goals,
Yeah.
everything takes a shit.
And even on the online world, I would say the example would be like, oh, you need to release these many videos.
Yeah, that's one of the worst things.
And if you really go underneath it all, who's making that? It's the algorithm.
Yeah.
So today, an algorithm is controlling your life literally, and you're not even aware of it.
Millions of people
Millions.
around the world.
Yeah. And the fucked up part, I believe, is that algorithm keeps changing a few weeks.
Yeah.
It's like a constant thing. So you have to be on top of that too.
So you're always on your toes. It really begs the question.
Yeah.
We really have to consciously take time out and observe and carefully analyze what occupies our minds right now. Let me give you a few examples. Do you recall random cricket or football stats?
No.
I mean, not you, but I'm talking to the audience.
Sure. Yeah.
Because there's a lot of them
Yeah.
who do.
Oh.
I come across so many people that in their active memory,
Yeah.
they store and recall information that is such bullshit.
Oh.
Like cricket stats, like which player made how many runs on that particular day in that particular year.
Sure.
What happened on that day? Did it rain later? What do you want to do with this information?
Right.
Football fanatics.
Yeah. Sports generally.
I'm not denigrating you guys. What I'm saying is the reason why I call this useless information
Yeah.
is because think of your mental real estate.
Right.
Okay, just think of your mental real estate and what you're stuffing in there.
Yeah.
Forget about all the other stuff that the world is trying to stuff in.
Inside you. Yeah.
You yourself are stuffing this bullshit.
Yeah.
And the reason I'm calling it bullshit is because that information can be accessed and referred to at any time
Now, yeah.
nowadays.
Can I make an observation about such people though? But you can confirm
Yeah,
if you
go
know these people directly. Generally, I have seen such people too. It's there even in the music.
Oh yeah, a lot of them, yeah.
It's generally because they either don't have purpose, they haven't found their identity,
Right.
they don't have purpose,
Yeah.
and generally are also mediocre conformists.
It is a meandering existence.
So then these are the things that make them feel special.
Yeah.
Rather than trying to find might be what I would say is, man, fantastic that you have that memory skill. That's something I would like celebrate about such
It's
a
a
person.
proof of concept that your memory is good.
Great.
Yeah.
So why don't you learn something new
Exactly.
and use that? But that is the thing, right? It's who you are surrounded by too. If most of the world celebrates mediocrity, you might need like triggers, maybe like a podcast or somewhere they would see an information where for the first time, I have friends who are like doing software who would come when we were in music and we were struggling musicians. But they would come into our world for like a week. They would feel free and they would celebrate. They would be like, wow, I wish I could live like this.
Yeah.
But they are extremely talented. Like they would be talented at something. Maybe it's a coding or something.
Yeah.
But that they didn't even have the opportunity to experience
Right.
a life or surroundings or people who are aiming to not be mediocre
Right.
and struggling and yet aiming for greatness
Yeah.
was something that they had not come across.
Yeah.
That when they do, it feels like a breath of fresh air, though we
Yeah.
are 1.4 billion.
It's a possibility that you did not know existed.
And where you are also looked upon in the same way.
Yeah.
Very important part. Like the
Exactly.
person was maybe a software engineer who came in, who was like one of our musician friends' friend, came to chill with him and then came into our like world.
Right.
And then we were just having fun. It wouldn't even be a jam session. It would just be like just normal talking,
Okay.
just chilling.
Yeah.
But they would see, oh man, these people are pursuing like greatness. There were mediocre people too.
Yeah.
Right. But in that circle, that they would feel like that they still remember. They still follow, they still communicate, they still remember that.
Yeah.
Just because somebody, like you said in India, somebody looked upon you as a creative possibility
Yes.
than just what the job you did.
Yeah.
I mean, that is the thing that I have noticed. But these people also would hold on to these kind of things in their normal world circle. They would hold on to these facts or something like this information stuff.
Yeah.
Because that was the only thing that was special in their world.
Exactly.
That they could stand out.
It comes down to a really simple question. If there is information,
Yeah.
that is available to you at your fingertips. You can access it. You can refer to it any point of time you want.
Yeah.
Why the fuck
Do you want to fill that in?
do you want to carry that in your head? Isn't that ineffective? Isn't that inefficient?
It is, but I think it comes down to where people just want to feel special.
No, I understand that. And we are only talking to those people who want to, course correct.
Yeah, sure, yeah.
Who want to know that there is a possibility to navigate.
If you are this person, oh man, your potential is like way more. This is a great skill you have.
Yeah.
But let's unlock your creative side.
Let's channel it for better shit.
Yeah. Not for this,
Not for this. And anytime you want stats of your favorite sports person,
just Google it.
Pick up your phone. Ask your AI whatever tool.
Yeah, that's it.
And you'll have it in seconds. Why are you carrying that load in your head?
Yeah.
When your head, the real estate there is of prime importance.
And I would also directly tell them, you can choose to surround yourself. And this is something, even whatever field you do. I mean, I've read this even on like these Harvard Business Review and these kind of magazines. Plus, I watch all these like high performing people.
Right.
Whether they be artists or whether
Any
they
walk
be
of life.
CEOs, technologists, scientists.
Yeah.
The common thread they always say is that surround yourself with people who push you beyond where you are.
Yeah.
Don't try to be the best among the group that you are.
That's actually an indication that you need to get the fuck out.
Out of it.
Exactly.
So if you are somebody that identifies with what Bogus said, that you are somebody who values these stats and this is great, it's not to diss you.
Yeah.
But it is to say that perhaps, and this might be a tough cookie to digest, that you do need to try and surround yourself with higher performing individuals who are also on their own. Don't see the money aspect or something, but see who are those people who are so motivated, self-driven, that at any cost, no matter what the society's cost, what the financial cost, are somebody who is trying to do something different, something unique, are dedicating their lives and self-motivated enough to pursue that dream of trying to find where their place in this world is. Because when you do that, then you will understand that this was not a diss.
Yeah. Well, I think that's the goodness in you.
Yeah. No, there is a shitty way to say it too, of course. Sometimes,
to frame it that way. But personally, I feel like, yes, it was kind of a diss. Yeah. But personally, I feel that for anyone who wants to be on a path of growth, there is no growth possible without tough cookies.
Oh, man. Yeah.
And even saying tough cookie is actually putting it mildly.
Right.
Saying tough cookie is actually being cute about it.
Yes.
In real life, it's not even a cookie.
Oh man, not at all.
It's something sharp.
It's like
up your ass.
Trying to dig a hole into a mountain.
Exactly. So there is no growth possible without, hard knocks and tough cookies and the like.
Oh man, yeah.
So please make peace with that fact. Don't expect cushioning.
And don't be so proud of these small things.
Yeah, and don't expect to be babied.
Right.
Because there's no growth possible.
Oh yeah.
In comfort, basically.
Never.
The truth does not have a cushion. Please make peace with that fact.
Right, yeah. So the good and the bad way of saying the same thing. And not bad, but the straightforward way.
It's a blunt way.
And actually, that is what it needs to be, actually.
Yeah.
This cushioning is also a big problem.
People who have been catalysts for growth in my life, I've found...
are straight shooters.
Always are straight shooters.
Yeah.
And they've always been blunt.
Because there's no time for bullshit.
And it's also the efficiency of it.
Yeah, actually.
It works in such a way that the bluntness is why I remember what they said.
That is what it is. It cuts through the illusion.
It cuts through and it sits inside and it bothers me and it stings, and I mull it over for days.
Yeah.
So the bluntness actually has a purpose.
Yeah.
Because if I were to sugarcoat it, you would move on to the next dopamine hit.
True. If you really want to grow a tree, you cannot be so soft on the soil. You literally got to dig the shit out of it.
And think of what the seed has to go through.
Yeah.
The seed has no cushioning.
Yeah.
It has to get through dirt.
On its own.
Yeah. So that's what it is.
Yeah, that's true. For all those people out there with these facts that...
Bullshit information. At least, at the very least, please think of it this way. If there's any set of data that you can access at any point of time now, there is no need for that to be sitting in your head.
also, I would equate that same statement, what you said, as find your and build your creative imagination. Is the same thing actually.
Yeah. And what I mean by that is if you remove this unnecessary information which can be accessed at all times, now what do you have? You have space.
Yeah.
And space allows you
To grow.
to grow.
That's it. Yeah.
And that's where we're getting at. So from there, we move on to the next phase of this information overload thing, which is let's help ourselves by classifying the memory that we have or classifying what goes on in our heads in our own terminologies. You know, we're not going to use Harvard Business Review or some
None of the
some
fancy
other
shit.
fuckers standards.
Yeah.
Let's just use something for our own understanding.
Yeah.
I'm calling it active memory and passive memory.
Okay.
And what I mean by that is active memory is information that is always, on your lips almost. It is what actively you remember. Things like where you stay,
Sure.
where do you have to go to work, and what are the people's names, what are your colleagues' names.
Right.
These kind of things are in your active memory,
Right.
which you're accessing more often than not.
Right.
And passive memory could be your memories from your childhood.
Right.
Stuff like which you don't really access as much,
Right.
almost to a point where there's an impression that you might have forgotten them.
Yeah.
But then life surprises you sometimes where you suddenly remember something
Right.
out of the blue.
Right.
And then you realize, oh, this was sitting in my head all this while.
All this while. Right. Sure. Yeah.
But you don't feel the load, you don't feel the burden of it.
Right.
It's almost invisible.
Sure. Yeah.
But it's your subconscious. It's there.
It is there. Yeah.
It is there.
Yeah.
So this is the distinction I want to make between active
And passive.
and passive.
Right.
Right? So if that understanding is clear, I want to use the example of the hard disk.
Right.
So even in the hard disk, most of you guys must have noticed this. At any given point in time, or let's say a phase of maybe a year or two,
Right.
as you use your computer or your laptop, there are certain areas in your laptop that you will access more regularly.
Definitely.
And there are some areas which don't enjoy that attention.
Definitely.
Either because you think, okay, this is just information to store.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll use it later, whatever.
Yeah.
reason.
Exactly. Yeah.
So let's think of this in terms of active and passive memory.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. Now, have you not noticed a difference when you double click on something which you're actively using
Right.
versus what happens when you double click something which you access just once in a blue moon?
Right. Takes longer time, I would say.
Takes longer.
Yeah.
It takes this computer, which is supposed to be this amazing, brilliant
Fast.
thing,
Yeah.
fast,
Yeah.
bits and bytes.
Intel i9, i10,
Exactly.
i12. Yeah.
But even in those shits,
Yeah.
when you double click on some, movie or a song file
Yeah.
that's not been accessed for years,
Right. Right.
it takes some time for it to buffer through and actually play.
Load and then get activated. Yeah.
So if it's doing that in the computer, in a hard disk, imagine your brain.
Right.
So this difference that you notice in your computer itself
Yeah.
kind of should give you an indication of how your brain is working.
Definitely.
And the reason why I'm driving this point is what are the things that slip into our passive memory
Yeah.
that we need to be aware of.
Oh, very important, because subconscious is why your life is the way it is
Exactly.
until you're aware.
Exactly. So what happens in an information overload age where the world is trying to stuff your head with bullshit,
Yeah.
and on top of that, you are stuffing your head with irrelevant bullshit that you can access at any time.
Yeah.
Important things like family relations.
Right.
How is this person feeling?
Yeah.
What are they going through?
Yeah.
We had an argument, or I might have said something harsh,
Right.
but did I really stop to take account of what impact, that could have had on them?
Yeah.
Or am I just so caught up in the bullshit in my own head
Yeah. That you just vomited.
that you're just living your own life? You just did not pay enough attention to this person,
Yeah.
which is actually a consciousness
Yeah.
that you're bound to
Yeah.
in this realm. So in terms of priorities, this should be important.
Yeah.
But that goes into your passive memory, your passive attention,
Yeah.
and you end up paying attention to all kinds of peripheral bullshit.
Yeah. Which you think is important and gives you validation.
Yeah. Israel, Palestine. What the fuck do you give about Israel, Palestine? It doesn't impact you in any way.
Right. No, it does, but
I mean,
not you personally.
Not you personally.
Not at this time,
Living
yeah.
here in India,
Yeah.
It doesn't touch you.
Yeah.
Why the fuck are you devoting mental real estate to that?
Like what happened in the US, I believe.
Yeah.
Like all the protests in the colleges. Yeah.
All of that over how your
The person who's right in front of you, where your impact is more.
Yeah, your life partner, your relationship, your close friends. How invested are you in what's going on in their life?
Yeah.
Are you even interested, or are you just being a selfish prick? Just being led by the nose like a hypnotized dog with all the bullshit in your head. And this is what this information overload does to all of us. I'm not just pointing a finger at someone.
Oh, yeah.
This is what it does to all of us. And the other thing about active and passive memory is that our culture also, because of unfortunate academic conditioning, has prioritized memorization over understanding.
Oh, yeah.
And literally memorization versus understanding is nothing but active versus passive memory.
Right.
Because understanding, it sinks deep down to our bones.
Yeah.
And when it sinks deep down to our bones, the benefit of that is it is no longer in your active memory.
No.
Once you've learned how to ride a bike,
it comes natural.
You don't have to
think.
Keep it in your active memory anymore. Yeah. And you would probably not even think about it. Yeah. You would probably have forgotten it, that you know how to ride a bike.
Oh, but it gives you freedom.
But 10 years later, you come across a bike and you have to ride it. That memory recall is instant.
Yeah.
And the memory recall is instant because it has sunken down to your bones, because you have an understanding.
Yeah.
And that's why understanding is way more important than rote memorization.
Right.
Because memorization keeps tinkering around in your active memory.
Yeah.
And the minute you add more active memory into your head, now this is going to get evaporated, or it's just like a hard disk rewrite.
Yeah.
So you're no longer remembering the active stuff.
Right.
So if you understand, not only do you have the information in your head, but it is stored in such a way that you don't feel the burden of it.
Sure.
It doesn't add to your anxiety. It doesn't add to your stress.
Right.
Nothing. You almost forget it. But when you really need it, there it is.
True. I mean, are a lot of people still doing that, like memorization and
This
stuff?
is how we live our life generally. I mean, when I say memorization, I don't mean just students, just ratifying stuff.
Right.
Anyone, even adults, professionals that I see in the workplace, they don't prioritize understanding.
Sure.
They don't want to understand the concepts.
They don't want to go to the root cause anymore.
Never.
It's the surface level stuff.
Literally what they want is, boss, tell me what the rules are.
Right.
Just tell me what the rules are. Tell me what rules I should not break. So I can just keep that in mind.
Conformity.
Conformity. And I'll just remember what I need to do, how I need to tread the path, without upsetting anyone. Right. And all this bullshit about how this particular individual is and how I need to behave with them and all this bullshit is clogging up your active memory.
Yeah, it's just unnecessary stuff.
Yeah. But there's no understanding of what is the organization about, what are our core tenets.
Going to roots, basically.
Going to the roots.
Going to depth basically has reduced, I would say.
Exactly.
Depth is what is most important, no matter what it is. Yeah.
Depth is the understanding.
Yeah.
And whatever's on the surface level, that's just your active memory. And the problem with active memory is that you feel the burden of it.
Sure, yeah.
You feel the weight of that. It adds to your stress. It makes you more fatigued. It adds to your anxiety.
Yeah.
And overthinking, what people call overthinking nowadays, which is a huge symptom.
Yeah.
It is nothing but your active memory.
Sure, yeah. It's also, I would say, why motivational speaking people has not produced so many CEOs.
Yeah.
Because when you go to the great motivational speaker, you're actively listening.
Yeah.
Wow, great. I feel all motivated and like pumped up.
Exactly.
But that was just
5 minutes later.
Yeah. Literally you walk out the gate.
And it's done.
That's why I don't necessarily believe in it. But I believe if you paid attention.
Yeah.
Took that back to your place and in silence.
Yeah. Let it sink in.
Take your time. Go to the root cause.
Yeah. And if you need to, refer to it again.
Yeah.
Go to it twice, thrice. The best books that have been written in the world are worth reading multiple times.
Because each time, the more you grow, the more they reveal.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So there is no harm in referring to it again. There's no harm in being humble about it. But understanding is really more important, because if you understand, there's no load on your head.
It becomes part of who you are.
And the best thing is, whether you need that information tomorrow 1 year down the line, 5 years down the line, 10 years
Yeah.
down the line, it will just pop up
As you require.
as you require. And it will go back into the passive state again.
Yeah. I think that's one of the best things about being human,
Yeah.
is that we have that ability.
Yeah.
And more importantly, also to just like point out with that example that you gave, right, about the bike,
Right.
understanding what it gives you. What does it give you is freedom.
Yeah.
Because say it's a concept. Like I also get on Instagram these like stoic points. Every time I see it, I get annoyed.
Yeah.
Right? I get annoyed reading it.
Yeah.
But I'm like, oh, the reason why I get annoyed is I have seen many of the times I try to put them in practice. More importantly than seeing on an Instagram thing for like 2 seconds.
Yeah.
It is about when you're off Instagram, I've tried to, in situations in real life, let's see, like a scientific test, whether it works.
Right.
So basically what you're saying, let's try to understand what was being said.
Exactly.
So then the line comes, like how you said, sometimes straightforward.
Yeah.
It makes you mull on it.
Yeah. It stings.
It
You know,
stings.
and sticks with you.
And it's important.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Important things that are helpful to you. Once it is there, and what I see is that when you apply it in real life, you don't need to read those goddamn channels anymore.
No more.
Because the thing is, you start applying it in your life.
Yeah.
And what you see is, you live actually a much more free life.
Yeah. Now it is in your bones now.
Yeah. And
No
that
more Instagram
literally
posts.
gives you freedom.
Yes.
Even if you live in a dictatorship society,
Yeah.
the point is within that, how do you live free? It's not external freedom. Freedom is within that, how do you play within that game?
Yeah.
It's about in any situation, how do you stay free?
Yeah.
And I think understanding is the pathway to truly living a peaceful and a free life.
Yeah.
And the analogy of your bike literally is that,
Yeah.
right? Bike or car, when you initially learn, there's so much anxiety and tension and all of that.
Yes.
But once it becomes part of your bones, what does it allow you? Anytime you want to leave,
Yeah.
you're not dependent on somebody else, on your own self,
Exactly.
free to go anywhere you want.
Yeah.
So you have literally earned your freedom if you try to understand. And basically that also understand, because understanding is nowadays spoken in such a common term, right? That is, it's to go to the depth of anything. That is more what actually understanding means.
Yeah.
It's to go to the depth and roots, like for anything that you're interested in. Because that is what has helped even with music. Like when I started, I didn't know shit.
Yeah.
But because of my interest, I was like, oh, let me go into the depth of it. And most of the people were still at mediocre levels.
Yeah.
They're very happy. The same tools, same softwares,
Right.
everything. But then when you went into the depth of it, any new tool that came to me that I never had an idea of how it works,
Yeah.
it was intuitive immediately. And it took just very few minutes compared to when I started off at the surface level.
Exactly.
Once I understood the root and depth of audio,
Yeah.
then any tool thrown at you, you can make
It's a
it
piece of
sing
cake.
excellently.
Yeah.
And what does it do? It gives you joy. It gives you freedom.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, it also makes you stand out,
Yeah.
right? So understanding and depth is what I think. I mean, that is what I would say for many who might not understand the word just on an understanding level.
That's true.
That
And
root is going to the root of anything you love.
that's exactly it, what you said.
Yeah.
Because the whole process of, 2 to 3 weeks learning how to drive a car,
Yeah.
while you're in that process, like you said, yes, it's on your mind
Yeah.
and you're going through the motions.
Yeah.
You're trying to keep everything in mind.
Yeah.
But once you figure out that you know how to drive a car,
Yeah.
you can literally say, now I can forget.
Yeah.
I can literally forget how to drive a car.
It's like getting up and walking.
That's it. There's no anxiety with it.
Nothing.
Nothing.
And so what do you feel? You feel free.
You feel free.
Freedom is literally in understanding.
Yeah.
So that is your passive, and make things go into your passive memory so there's a less load on your brain so that you have more space
You have more space.
to learn more things
Yeah.
and to grow as a human being.
Yeah.
Which is what I think we are here for.
So I think we're winding down to the end of
Right.
our episode, which is in this last part, we wanted to talk about, all right, you guys have identified the issue
Right.
and you've gone to some depth about it, but we can't just leave it like that. So what are possible workarounds? What are possible solutions that one could experiment with? And that's what we're going to get to now.
Okay.
So already I think we started with that, which is free up your mental space by first of all cutting out information that you can access and refer to.
Yes.
No need for that.
Yeah.
So you get some space with that.
Yes.
The second thing is prioritizing understanding or going in depth rather than actively memorizing shit.
Yeah.
And when we talk about space, really, it's more the merrier.
Yes.
You can never have too much space in your head.
No. Because knowledge, I think, is unlimited.
It's unlimited. And the more understanding you get, the more it slips into your passive memory. You don't even feel its presence.
Right.
There's no burden.
There's no weight.
There's no weight of it. So,
but there's all the enjoyment, I would say.
all the enjoyment, all the freedom.
Right. Freedom.
And the freedom is really the biggest thing.
Yeah. Space, freedom, congruent.
Yeah.
The congruent symbol.
Yeah.
Space congruent to freedom. And I think freedom congruence to peace. Peace congruence to a joy. And actually congruence to purpose. Because knowledge is what we are, I would say, human beings. We are pattern crunchers.
Yeah. Yeah.
We are a machine that observes. And the fundamental thing why we are today, whatever the hell we have, the entire society as it is that we are a curious animal.
Yeah.
That is fundamental. And that is the only thing which has allowed our species to propagate and thrive to this level.
Yeah.
It is our curiosity that we have our surroundings. This phone, all of these are just consequences.
Yeah.
So that curiosity needs space.
And, at the end of it, what we all crave for, knowingly or unknowingly, is freedom. All of us.
That's it.
In varying degrees, varying levels, all that is there. But freedom is something that we all crave for.
Even amongst these crazy wars that is going on.
Yeah.
Either side is seeking the same actual freedom.
And speaking of war, this is really what I wanted to get to, which is we have to think of it in that terms. It is warfare.
It is.
That's happening for your attention.
Absolutely.
And what do you do in a war? You have to shore up your defenses.
Yeah.
You have to make sure that it's not easy for any fucking piece of information to just get into your head like that.
Yeah.
It has to pass through a certain filter.
Yeah.
There has to be a firewall of sorts.
Yeah.
There has to be a defensive perimeter of sorts.
Yeah.
I mean, imagine...
And there have to be strategies to win the war.
Yeah, exactly. There has to be a game plan.
Yeah.
Imagine a farmer who just leaves his farm unattended. What's going to happen to it? I mean, he has to constantly keep an eye on pests that are eating up his crop.
Yeah.
He has to constantly keep an eye on the quality of the soil, which is what his livelihood depends on.
Absolutely.
And the quality of the soil is a metaphor for your brain, your mind.
Yes. That's where everything grows.
Yeah. And if the soil is rich, your produce is rich.
Yeah.
Basically. So he needs to be in control of the seeds that are sown. What kind of seeds is he sowing?
That is today your information and content.
And in today's age, you have organic seeds versus the GMO modified seeds.
Right. That's, I would equate to like friendships. The people you surround yourself with.
If any farmer uses a GMO seed in his farm, he cannot go back to organic again. Because
the soil is fucked.
The soil is so fucked. Now he is dependent
on only that.
On only using the synthetic seeds.
Seeds plus again more fertilizers, by the way. The cost is higher now.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's basically he's having to put his balls in someone else's hands.
Definitely.
Completely dependent.
Yeah.
That's exactly what's going on with our minds.
Yes.
That is exactly what's going on with this information age.
Yeah.
And that is why we need defensive
strategies. This podcast, in my opinion, would be one of, I think even what you guys are doing with iGap, right? Is putting just throwing seeds out there.
Yeah.
So that anybody who comes across this, at least you have the ability for you to at least pause.
Right.
And think about these things that are actually happening in the world.
Yeah.
That even if people in your circle do not, it's just like finding the best organic seed, perhaps.
Yeah.
The GMO seeds I would equate to bad content that is there.
Yeah. It's
on
like
YouTube. Just
reality TV.
That kind of bullshit.
What is it doing for you really?
Humans have such a weird...
all it is doing for you is it is keeping you distracted because that's comfortable. It's going to be very uncomfortable to focus on your own thoughts and, focus on
growth,
yourself, on your growth.
Just basically taking your time away and they are the ones making money off of your time.
That's it.
Literally.
Yeah.
That's what it is. But humans are kind of weird. Humans have a dark side too.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, we do have the most dark side, I would say. We are the worst and we can be the best.
Darkness, everybody.
Yeah.
There's a lot of darkness. So solutions, workarounds,
Yeah.
we're just going to throw a few out there. Hope that helps.
Yeah.
If not, then you have it within you to figure out a solution that works for yourself.
I mean, I would say we have actually quite a bit given the seeds for solutions.
Yeah. All
To
I'm
find
saying,
them, yeah.
all I'm saying is if whatever we've talked is not fitting someone's
Perspective.
context,
Yeah.
then they still have the capacity to figure out a solution by themselves that
Right.
works for them.
Oh, man. Yeah.
And you should never forget that.
Yeah.
So I'll start with this. Really observe your mind.
Yeah.
What is going on in there? What information is actively
Running.
running around in your mind? And what information is easily accessible and you can easily refer to, but you still have it in your head? Observe that information and delete it as soon as possible. And
I would also say there's a lot to study about yourself.
a lot.
Actively, you have different methods, like meditation is one.
Yeah.
Or you can, listen to music or read a book. So anything that allows you to break the wall of illusion is basically what I'm trying to get to. Art does that for a lot of people.
Got it. Yeah.
That it breaks the wall of this illusion and allows you. And I also say sometimes people have this moment, it's a common thing, when they're shitting on the pot.
Oh, yeah. We did a whole episode on that, actually.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So on the shitting on the pot moment,
Right.
sometimes it also happens when you're traveling.
Yes.
It's one of the reasons I would say traveling is like people are so hooked to it is because in the journey part, it's not the destination.
Yeah.
It's during the moment of travel, they have these feelings
Yeah.
of absolute freedom and thoughtlessness.
Yes.
Because at that point, you are not the identity, actually. That
Yeah.
is my observation of it.
Mm-hmm.
It is just you existing.
Yeah.
And so if that moment is possible and you have experienced it, it's like a muscle.
Yeah.
It's any workout. It's
Yeah.
just that people around you might not be aware of it, or they might not encourage it, or they might have weird thoughts about it. Change your circle in such a case.
Yes.
Or find solitude so that you can work on it without having to inform other people for your own group. But in that discovery, you will also find a lot of illusions that you have built upon yourself,
Yeah.
which are also perhaps from your parents,
Yeah.
right? And other people that you have experienced through school or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And then you realize all of that, it's so much more easy to erase it out. Once you understand from our previous point of going to the root,
Yeah.
once you understand that it is an illusion, it is so easy to get rid of it.
Yes.
And I wish I was taught this at a younger age as to what it means to be a human being on this planet. That this was something taught to me at a much younger age so that I would have had a much more efficient adulthood than it taking me more time. But I feel like this is fundamental to be taught to most people.
Yeah. And, I wish someone would have told me this or shared this with me is the basic reason why this podcast exists.
Yeah.
Because we also had the same grievance. It's like, why didn't someone
Tell me this.
Tell me this.
And so basic when you actually get to it.
Yeah.
You're like, holy shit, this is so simple. It's not like this complicated, like these guru
it's
guys
not
and all.
rocket science. Yeah.
Oh
yeah.
man, they make it sound like, fuck, you gotta be like this level.
Yeah.
You gotta have all these levels. But it's the most basic shit actually.
Yeah.
That you just laugh. You're like, man, I lived like such a shitty life
Yeah.
until this moment. I'm glad at least now I found it.
Yeah.
The point of this podcast also is to perhaps introduce these thoughts. So I would say to come out of this. And if you do really go into this part, whatever we discussed about information, about content overload, finding how to do things,
Right.
all become like a very natural consequence.
Yes.
Then whatever we spoke about before,
Yeah.
you'll be like, oh yeah,
Yeah. Things will fall
man,
into
so
place.
obvious.
Yeah.
You guys are talking obvious shit on the podcast.
Exactly.
Not anything special.
Yeah.
But that is what you can come to, that when you go on that self-discovery and break that illusion of identity.
Yeah.
And then you realize actually why even in our Indian spirituality, they said that you are divine.
Yes.
The point of divine is not that, oh man, you're going to create something out of thin air. But it is about the fact that you are an unlimited creative being and you can create anything because your mind can do it.
Yeah.
We are pattern crunchers and outputters.
Yes. Yes. And very quickly, you just mentioned solitude and that reminded me.
Yeah.
The reason why we were stressing on solitude
Yeah.
is because without coming to peace with solitude, without being able to handle solitude, there is no hope of handling loneliness.
Yeah. Now, also solitude will truly see whether you love yourself or not.
Yes.
Can you handle yourself? And I think that's the biggest fear. Actually, it's not even these wars.
Yeah.
I think the biggest fear humans have is facing themselves.
That's true.
It's there in certain movies too.
Yeah. And nowadays, that trope keeps repeating a lot in movies because I think it is, other people have said it also, that loneliness is really the malaise of our times.
Right.
And I don't think we've even peaked yet. I think we are going to peak.
Oh, this while we were talking about the breaking of individuals in the in a family of four itself.
We are in the process.
Yeah.
And so loneliness, the epidemic of loneliness has not really peaked yet.
Yeah.
But you cannot deal or handle loneliness unless you come to terms with solitude first.
Yeah.
We actually did an entire episode on this before called Loneliness versus Solitude. Check it out, guys.
Right.
That goes into a lot more detail about the difference between these two.
Cool. Yeah.
Because that's important to first of all understand.
Yeah.
How
very
are these
important.
How are these two different? And they're very different.
Very.
Very different.
Yeah.
One will kill you and the other one will free you. So that's the difference basically.
Yeah. Now, solitude is fantastic, but it's not as easy a journey for the times we live in. Because I practice solitude, and everybody who has met me in my studio, I'm like, man, you live the most fantastic life.
Right.
But nobody has ever pointed the cost.
Yes. The price that you have to pay.
The price that you pay. But when you do, that is what they see and they're envious of.
Yeah.
Because they're like, man, how free you look.
Right.
Once you find self-contentment within yourself, which truly exists, because there's nothing special from one person to the other.
Yeah.
Every human being has the exact same potential.
Yes.
When you truly are self-content, then you're the first time in your life actually free.
Yeah.
That is when you're consciously making choices.
And the lightness that you feel.
Yeah. You literally feel it.
You feel weightless.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
The next thing, for the information, like in terms of solutions or something you can try.
Yeah.
The next thing that I would suggest is figure out an exercise to drag yourself back to the present moment. Anytime you feel your head is heavy, anytime you feel fatigue because of, not because of physical fatigue, but shit going on in your head, remind yourself that, I need to drag myself to this moment right now.
Yeah.
Because what's actually happening is you're either in the past or you're in the future.
Yeah.
That's where that's coming from.
Yeah.
So how do you drag yourself
to the present moment?
To the present moment. And I literally use that word drag deliberately because that's
our minds love going into the future.
Yes.
That is why.
It just keeps slipping here or there.
Yeah.
And you have to drag it back. And, surprisingly, what's helped me with this is photography.
Right.
And
you have to. There's no other option.
Yeah. And
I mean, if you want to be a good one.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And even in photography, right? The surface level is, okay, I'll just focus on what's in front of me.
Yeah. And just bliss.
And just focus. And that's one level of bringing yourself to the present moment.
Yes.
But that's not really good enough.
No.
And that doesn't work as an example for this episode.
Sure.
Because what I'm really talking about is
the concentration.
The concentration, and it's not just what's in front of you.
Yeah.
You really have to
take in the entire picture.
The everything,
And then what should I frame?
Yeah. For example, I got this because I'd gone on a trip with a bunch of people.
Right.
And there was this girl who was also interested in photography.
Sure.
And so I was taking my own photos and she was taking her bunch of photos. Sure. And at the end of the day, we swapped cameras and we were checking it out.
Right.
And I noticed my photos were all from a distance.
Sure.
And they were all taking in a larger picture.
Right.
Her photos, she's not Indian.
Yeah.
So she was focusing on design motifs.
Right.
On some tiles.
Patterns.
And she's focusing on things under her nose.
Right.
Something that's beside her feet.
Nice. Yeah.
Which is something that I don't even think of.
Sure. Yeah.
At that point of time, I didn't think of.
Yeah.
But when I saw her photos, I was like, wait, we were both at the same place.
Right. Saying different things.
There is such a uniform pattern in what I'm seeing.
Yeah.
And there is a uniform pattern in what she's seeing.
Yeah.
How come I did not stop to look down?
Right.
How come I did not stop to focus on this beautiful design motif?
Yeah.
Why didn't I take a picture of that? Because when I'm looking at her pictures, I'm liking all of them.
Exactly, yeah.
And I'm not hating my own,
Yeah.
but I can see what is missing.
Right.
My attention
Yeah.
is one-dimensional.
Correct. On the larger picture only.
Always.
Yeah.
And I'm missing out on so much detail.
That's happening right under your nose.
Right under me, right behind me.
Yeah.
Like if I climb up to a certain altitude, then what am I seeing?
Right.
All of this shit,
Yeah.
which she played around with.
Right.
So ever since then, when I try to take photos in a particular location, I pull myself back before I even take a single shot.
Right.
I literally, like I'm a dumb robot.
Yeah.
I remind myself, there's grass.
Right.
There's these bushes to the left.
Right.
There's a tree here. There's the horizon. The sun might set in about 15 minutes.
So you become more of an observer. In the present moment.
And, three-dimensional observer.
Yeah.
Like everything. I'm not just looking front.
Yeah.
I'm looking down. I'm looking up.
The entire detail.
I'm looking behind me.
Yeah.
And I'm crawling down
to
the floor to get a different point of view.
Yeah.
And then going higher up in elevation and see if anything strikes my fancy.
So you're truly living in the present moment in that scene of existence.
And what I would call this is being aggressively in the present
Oh,
moment.
absolutely.
Because you're really dragging yourself.
You got to.
Yeah. And that's exactly what I mean.
That is a solution.
As a solution.
Oh man, yeah.
When I say try to figure out an exercise to drag yourself to the present moment, what I mean is be aggressive about it.
Aggressively, yes.
And be three-dimensional about it. Look around you. Everything, small details. What is that person doing in front of me? What could their state of mind be?
Yeah.
By their body language.
Yeah.
Not useful information, but it helps to drag you back to the present moment.
Sure.
And once you find yourself, okay, I'm here now.
Yeah.
Now your mental state is going to be more relaxed.
Yes. Breathing will be calm.
Yeah. You get that relief. You get a break.
Yeah.
And now you can start thinking about what's the next thing I need to focus on. So that could be a very useful exercise that helped me.
Definitely.
Personally.
I mean, that is also, I would tie it into the reason why we have mantras.
Yes.
Or the mantras, the point, we studied that in our school too.
Yes.
So one of the things I paid attention to also is why only those notes?
Right. That's a good question to ask.
Why only? Because we are the ones who invented so many notes.
Yes.
So many ragas.
Yeah.
Why did they choose only those notes, right?
Why restrict?
Yeah. But if you pay attention even sonically, that puts you in a state.
Yes.
That makes you just be here. You cannot go beyond it because it takes a lot of concentration to be actually sing few notes. That is just going here and up, down, up, down.
Yeah.
It puts you in that very present state of mind.
Yeah.
Without you being aware of it.
Yeah.
So it was a way that they scientifically wanted to train people who wouldn't perhaps understand language or conversations like this.
Yeah.
But to get it into their system.
Yeah.
To be present. So mantra was one thing I thought about when you said about aggressively. And another thing I wanted to add to that as an addendum to aggressively pushing you in the present moment. I would go back to your analogy about driving.
Yes. Okay.
That is what you require. It is the equivalent when you say aggressively be in the present moment. It is the equivalent of when you are learning to drive.
Right.
The first month when you are actually in driving school.
Yeah.
And then the second month and third month when you might be still anxious in different traffic situations.
Yeah.
Right? Driving in the plains, driving in the mountains with hairpin bends.
Oh yeah, it's a whole different
So it's
ballgame.
all different scenarios.
Yes.
The driving is the same. The gear is the same. So, but after you do that a few times, so that's what aggressively or being present moment by forcing yourself to be in that.
Yeah.
It becomes a natural state.
Yeah. Yeah. Like a workout. Yeah.
Like you don't think when you walk.
Yes.
The next time you're on a road with crazy Hyderabad traffic or whatever it is, you're not really like consciously paying attention as much as you did when you started.
Yes.
Now it's just become like a muscle movement.
Understanding. Yeah.
Then what has happened? Your present moment and being aware just becomes your natural state of existence.
Yeah.
And when you do that, whatever it is you do in your life becomes much more free. All these topics and all be like, oh man, this is so goddamn obvious.
Yeah.
The present moment practice, but is like that.
Yeah.
That is what I wanted to add to that because I wanted people to know that you don't always will not be aggressive.
Right.
It would be the equivalent of like driving.
Right.
Your initial would be a lot more. You have to do that. After a while, it just becomes your nature.
Oh yeah. Initially, there's always going to be that churn.
Yeah.
that you feel.
But that's like anything in life, really.
That's anything in life. And we did an amazing episode, Churning Off Your Ocean, exactly on this subject.
Awesome.
Check it out. So yeah, that's what we mean when we say aggressively bring yourself back to the present moment.
Right.
And figure out whatever exercise works for you.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
The other thing would be to monitor, stimulus.
Yes.
What are the things dopamine-wise that are stimulating you constantly? Once you monitor them, then you can figure out ways to reduce them slowly.
Yes.
It's a minor example, but this is more that you should figure out ways that fit your context.
Yeah, like which dopamine rush is healthy for me?
Yeah, right.
Dopamine, we all love it. That is why the entire joy of the pursuit of happiness or
Makes
whatever it is.
world go round.
Makes you want to live.
Yeah.
But that's what the short dopamine rushes, don't fall for that trap.
Yeah.
This applies even to your relationships or whatever it is. The instant gratification is not long-term over short-term. Short-term has its place.
Yeah.
It's like going for a nice drive.
But there's a priority.
Yeah, but a journey or traveling is always a much more fulfilling experience
Yeah.
than just going for a short drive. That is also great.
Yeah.
But if you really see when you have a long travel planned, that is always has more stronger memories in your life. I would say that is an analogy I would like to leave people with.
It's a lot more rewarding.
Way more rewarding.
Yeah.
In many ways. It's multitudes, not just a short trip,
Yeah.
Whereas the world is trying to make you feel lonely, actually, I would say, by giving you short-term dopamine rushes. They're trying to isolate you, to make you feel isolated, though it might not seem across.
Right.
But once you're addicted to that, they have total control over you.
Yeah. The next thing that I wanted to put forward was raw dogging.
What is that?
So,
These goddamn new terms. Yeah.
So technically, the word comes from not using a condom.
Okay.
Unprotected sex.
Sure. Yeah.
That's what raw dogging actually meant.
Okay.
But now the term has adopted different usage.
Sure.
In terms of people have now started using raw dogging in the sense that, and this is what Western folks are doing.
Okay.
Some guys are trying to do that and put it on social media.
Okay.
If they're on a flight, which for them is quite often,
Right.
they don't want to use any kind of phone, tablet, media, no consumption. All they want to do is sit in that seat and look ahead. And that's it.
Not even look outside the window
Or maybe outside is fine.
Sure.
But basically no consumption, no technology, no gadgets, no bullshit.
Like a withdrawal, basically. Being in what do you call?
A rehab.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sure.
So this is what the Western folks are doing, and they started adopting the term raw dogging for that.
Okay.
So I'm kind of taking that forward.
For those who are maybe severely addicted to that. But I mean, I don't know. Don't you think they'll have like some sort of withdrawal?
They will. And that's the reason why,
A flight allows you limited.
It's a limited time,
that's
So
good,
that's the reason why I'm not saying, go for weeks or something, because even I can't
it's
do
possible,
that.
yeah.
Even I can't do that. I don't want to do that.
No, that's not going to work too. Yeah.
But for anyone who is at a state where, yes, they feel the burden of their preoccupied mind
by technology,
by whatever it is, then yes, every now and then maybe take breaks, start small, maybe start with an hour, where you go to a nice place wherever you stay, in the city or wherever you live.
Yeah.
Go to a nice scenic part of the...
go for walks.
Go for a walk or find a park bench, sit on it.
Right.
And just don't do anything.
Yeah, just like be mindless.
Keep your phone on do not disturb.
Yeah.
So that you never have to look at it.
Right.
And just sit and observe.
Yeah. Nice.
Around you. And let's call that raw dogging.
Sure.
So start small. Yeah. And then you can increase...
Like any exercise.
Yeah. Just slowly gamify that for yourself.
Nice.
And increase the time duration. And you will basically get the same benefit that people get when they travel.
That's nice. This gives me hope. That people are able to recognize. It just needs to be more widespread.
Yeah.
That's it. The importance of time alone.
I mean, it's understandable because in the West, especially US, Silicon Valley, they're so inundated with...
Shit. But I think India is like,
bullshit.
We accept that and take it to a whole different level.
Yeah, but our advantage is that we still have a rich cultural backing.
And strong families, I would say, still.
Yeah, stronger family, stronger community.
Yeah.
Which really helps us stay sane to some extent. But if we don't address this aggressively,
oh man,
things are going to get out of hand.
Yeah.
pretty soon. So try raw dogging
Nice.
with your dopamine
Yeah.
and gamify it for yourself. Small intervals, and then keep increasing it. It will give you a lot of value. I know meditation is tough, and there's a particular technique to go about it. There's different types of meditations.
Yeah.
So there could be a learning curve with that, but there's no learning curve with raw dogging.
Yeah.
Just go sit somewhere. That's it.
Yeah.
And don't look at shit.
And that would be an entry into understanding which method of meditation works.
Maybe.
And that's another thing, that you don't have to think that, oh, this I tried and it's going to fail.
Yeah.
There are so many different types.
Yeah.
It's just what works for you.
And just to be clear, the only success metric is that if you thought, I need to sit at this park bench,
Yeah.
just staring out and not doing anything for 30 minutes, and if you're able to do it for 30 minutes, that's the success metric.
Oh, definitely.
There's no other success metric like you need to keep your mind empty, or you need,
those things never work.
or you need to specifically think about your goals.
Yeah.
No, I don't care if you think about whatever the fuck. I don't care what you think about.
Yeah.
As long as you don't look at anything electronic, as long as you keep away from any dopamine,
Nice.
just the time limit that you set for yourself, let that be the only success metric.
Right.
And these things by themselves could be a great start.
Absolutely. It's basically starting to give a shit about yourself.
That's it. That's what it all comes down
It's
to.
just that. Anything else is just add-ons.
Yeah. So,
What else? Raw dogging.
raw dogging.
Oh man, yeah. I've been raw dogging for a long time. I didn't know. I just got to know it. Yeah.
But in what sense do you mean that? Is the question.
My phone's never near me. Oh.
Without protection? Or?
Yeah, I guess.
Okay. So that's about all we had
That was the end.
for this particular topic. Information overload. It's the information bottleneck. There's a war
There is a war, yeah.
raging on for your attention. Please be mindful of it. And
Create gaps for thyself
yes.
in your
what a
mind.
beautiful way to say that. I wish I said it myself. Create gaps for thyself, guys.
Yes, in
Thyself.
your mind. You will
Yes.
love it. There is no better dopamine rush, by the way.
Yeah.
And that's when you will know. Like, none of this shit compares even close
Yeah.
to when you create space for yourself
Yeah.
and explore that.
So take that shovel, take that spade, get into your mind and start clearing the garbage.
Yeah, that's just a lot in today's time.
And make some space.
Yeah.
All right. So that was the episode. What did you guys think? If there's anything you think we missed, or if there's any hacks that you have that you think would be useful for others, write to us, connect with us. On Instagram, we are @_ThighGap. On Twitter, we are @ThighGap. Our email is mindthigap@gmail.com. And our Discord link, you can find it in the episode description or in our link in bio. We'd love to hear from you. And until the next time, ciao.
See you.
And of course, I'd be remiss to say thank you, Syklik.
Oh, this is
Wait.
great.
That was too formal and bullshit.
No, I don't think. We'll leave it at that. Keep it that way rather than...
Yeah.